In a move that turned out to be prophetic, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky sent a piece of an Iranian Shahed drone to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a warning that his country could be one of the Islamic Republic's next targets. I brought from Kyiv pieces of Iranian drones called Shahed. Ukrainian ambassador to Israel Yevgen Kornichuk recalled for the Jerusalem Post during an interview this week. At the time, he asked Israel's national security advisor Tzachi Hanegbi to pass it as a gift from Zelensky to Netanyahu, telling him that if Ukraine and Israel do not cooperate against Russia, you will receive the same. Indeed, Kornichuk told the Post, "This is what's happening right now." It has not given the ambassador any comfort to know that he and Zelensky were right, as events have unfolded and Israel has been targeted by Iranian drones and missiles since the October 7th invasion by the Iranian proxy group Hamas. First, the Houthis shot Iranian projectiles at Israel from Yemen, and then on Saturday night and early Sunday, as Kornichuk sat in his Tel Aviv office updating Kyiv, Iran itself launched more than 300 of its drones and missiles at the Jewish state. In a move that has left Ukraine envious as its army battles Russia alone, most of them were shot out of the night sky by a coalition of 5 armies: Israel, the U.S., Great Britain, France, and Jordan. Zelensky himself commented on it the next day in a post on X, stating European skies could have received the same level of protection long ago if Ukraine had received similar full support from its partners in intercepting drones and missiles. It has not given the ambassador any comfort to know that he and Zelensky were right, as events have unfolded and Israel has been targeted by Iranian drones and missiles since the October 7th invasion by the Iranian proxy group Hamas. Terror must be defeated completely and everywhere, not more in some places and less in others, the Ukrainian president stressed. Kornichuk said that there are, of course, differences, and the risks to Europe would be greater if it mounted such a defense. Had the West mounted a similar defense, it would put the countries belonging to the NATO at war with Russia, the Ukrainian ambassador said. Israel and the United States also have strategic alliances that long predate their relations with Ukraine, he said. Still, October 7th, and the direct Iranian attack, he said, underscored how deeply united the two allies are, even as they battle a joint enemy from vastly different geopolitical positions, Kornichuk said, adding, however, that it also emphasized some of the differences as Israel continues to maintain diplomatic relations with Russia despite Moscow's military alliance with Iran. On a higher political level, Israel needs to keep its own relations with Russia for the strategic reasons, but it should minimize the dialogue because of their obvious support for your enemies, namely Iran, he stated. He took issue in particular with the conversation Hanegbi held the day after the Iranian attack with Russian Security Council Secretary Nikolai Patrushev, even though the Kremlin had defended Iran's right to strike Israel, explaining that it sent the wrong message. What else needs to happen for Israel to understand that we have the same enemy? Kornichuk asked. This is the time for Israel to do more to support Ukraine rather than worry about neutrality with Russia, he stated, adding that we must join forces and fight the joint Russian-Iranian enemy together. That's particularly true given that Russia has reduced its military forces in Syria and does not really pose a threat to Israel from there, as it once did, he explained. Israel and Ukraine are fighting against the axis of evil, as U.S. President Joe Biden has said, and what we have to do is to cooperate much more strongly together and on a trilateral level as well as on all levels, he said. Initially, in the aftermath of Russia's attack on Ukraine in February 2022, Kornichuk was harshly critical of the Israeli government's stance as the country led by former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett attempted to walk a neutral line that would maintain relations with both Moscow and Kyiv. Israel also needed to maintain its relations with Russia, a longtime ally, because it had a deconfliction agreement that allowed it to operate against Iranian military targets in Syria. While other countries offered defensive and offensive military aid, Israel focused on humanitarian assistance, providing a civilian warning system against missiles only in the second year of the war. Kornichuk said he was summoned to the foreign ministry 5 times within 2 years for his frustrated statements about the absence of a more aggressive Israeli stance. Ukraine's attitude changed, he said, after the Hamas-led attack on October 7th, in which over 1,200 people were killed and another 253 seized as hostages. Opponents of Israel and its subsequent war against Hamas in Gaza have often compared the Jewish state to Russia and the Palestinians to Ukraine by way of demonizing the Jewish state. Kornichuk, who supports a two-state resolution to the conflict, spoke out against those in the United States who have been protesting against Israel by calling for its destruction, chanting from the river to the sea. None of the students in the United States who are proclaiming that slogan understand what they're talking about, he said.
In the world back in 1994.